Growing luminous. On the mystic path, we create our own light, and at first we struggle blind and baffled, seeing nothing, hearing nothing, unable to think, unable to imagine. We seem deserted by a dream, vision, or inspiration, and our meditation barren altogether. But let us persist through weeks or months, and sooner or later that stupor disappears. Our faculties readjust themselves and do the work we will them to do. Never did they do their work so well. The dark caverns of the brain begin to grow luminous. We are creating our own light. George William Russell.
Thank you so much. So that is the quote that we open our Gems from the Wisdom Traditions Conversation Circle with every Saturday this year for our theme of Light on the Path. And this week's particular theme that we're going to be taking up for our conversation is the idea of students of life. And this idea that indeed all of life is our school. And so of course we learn. We are students on that path. And today we're very fortunate to have someone here with us for the very first time. This is Ken Small. And Ken Small grew up in a theosophical family, and he went on to also study Zen Buddhism. And he teaches ongoing meditation practices with Buddhist groups. He's in the San Diego area of Southern California. And a few years ago, he initiated the ENSO project with a small group of friends and associates, where he teaches theosophical wisdom, meditation, and inner transformation methods. So he applies these to his vocation of natural healing, integrating mindfulness, ethnobotany, herbal and energetic healing modalities. So we're so pleased to have you joining us, Ken, today. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to everything that you have to share with us after you've given us some good seed thoughts in what was sent out to the group in terms of readings and some suggested questions.
Thank you, Renee.
Yeah.
I wanted to find that quote that you first sent out, the Chardin quote.
We can read that out to you. I can read it right now. This is, as you say, from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah, that sort of covers it quite nicely in one succinct statement. Yeah, I wish I was in Honolulu. I would come and participate in all your wonderful healing and movement and creative endeavors there.
I wish you were too.
You never know. If I get to Honolulu, I will definitely come by.
There you go.
Where to begin? I think one thing, and this can be applied to any tradition, but here we'll look at it through the lens of Zen for the moment, and then we'll branch out from there. Suzuki, who was an earlier great scholar and practitioner of Zen, also very sympathetic and influenced by theosophy. His wife was a theosophist, Beatrice Lane. And as a young man, he'd been the translator for a Zen teacher at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago in 1893, which opened a whole avenue of great change and interreligious dialogue in the Western world, in the United States. Anyway, much later, he was posing the question, what is the one thing you cannot take away from Zen? It will no longer be Zen. We could pose that question to any tradition. It's a very interesting one because it's in attempting to answer that, it answers the question of what it is, of course. And then further on, we can apply this to our own lives as well. So the one thing that cannot be taken away from Zen, and it will no longer be Zen, is this very unique idea of satori or kensho or sudden awakening, inner awakening. So Suzuki says, everything else is just decoration. But that one central idea, if you take that away, then what Zen is no longer Zen. So, what is this idea of Satori or Kensho, sudden awakening, often popularized in not always the best ways, you know? So, what is it really in essence? So, uh, roughly translated, Satori can be looked at as translated as awakening or understanding or even to know or knowing, but it doesn't mean to know in our usual conventional sense of like I know X, Y, or Z. So into our kind of limited English language, we would have to then be use something like the Greek word gnosis, knowing something in its absolute essence. So Satori is essence, or in Sanskrit would be like prajna, complete insight into the nature of things. Wisdom, wisdom slash insight, wisdom gnosis, wisdom. You know, our language is not very good in English here, so we have to kind of take a leap of faith to kind of get the nuance better. So D.T. Suzuki was saying, yeah, no Satori, no Zen, just even as a concept, let alone an experience. So it gives a bigger framework. But then what is this idea based on? This is based on the notion, and which comes to our subject today more closely, that our Buddha nature is intrinsic. It's not something that we are trying to, we don't have to develop it from scratch. It's in us already. We have to uncover it and find it. In that sense, discovery. So this intrinsic nature of awakening is hardwired into what it is to be a human being. In that sense, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. You know, and the Zen method is very direct. There are many methods for suitable to different types of people, depending on our predilections and interests. But in Zen, it's very direct. So in this present moment, in this absolute present moment, where is this person? Where is this ultimate person? Where is this Buddha nature? Past? Past? Where is past? As we try to grasp it, it's already gone. It remains something we conceptualize in our mind. And future? Future is, we make the list for tomorrow. Does it ever happen like that? Of course not. Yet we stick to it resolutely. This is our sense of human identity. We grasp very strongly. So this self-grasping, this limited sense of my sense of self-identity is wrapped around our teeter-tottering between this past and future. But in this absolute present moment, where is it? So in the absolute present moment, it cannot be found. And it's this precious moment that is the highway to awakening or satori or our Buddha nature or our selfless self or our whatever words we want to give to the you know ineffable, center of things or universal self. And the methods varied, again, depending on who we are, and or no methods, things happen spontaneously. But in this embracing the present moment, fully embodied in this present moment, is a way through, through to this higher vision, in a sense. Even in Western tradition, unusual visionaries like William Blake would say, eternity is in love with the productions of time. Or even more radically, the body is the soul perceived by the senses. This is a very different view than the conventional view. So this broadens our nature of things. I think we can just talk. I don't want to talk a long time in the beginning here. Is that enough, Renée? You tell me.
That that was a great start for us. And from some of the things that you were suggesting in what you sent to us that we sent to our invitees, it sounds as if all the little tasks and doings of our daily life can be part of this very spiritual experience, can be openings to this direct awakening that you're talking about. If we bring ourselves fully to it, we could be washing the dishes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's examples from all traditions. The great Indian poet, mystic Kabir, was a shoemaker, as was Jakob Burma, the great German mystic in time period. Yeah, it's in there's an unusual character, Brother Lawrence, in French contemplative tradition. You talked about the practice of the presence of God. He was the monastery baker, the cook. For him, it was in baking bread. Very expressing the ineffable in our most mundane things. Really, the kitchen's one of the best places. The garden or walking or something. But it can also come through study. I think in some ways that's harder. I'll be quite honest. And I come from a theosophical tradition, which is often very intellectual. Uh, but we have to use that as our guideposts, as the map, and not confuse the directions for the goal. Is very important.
So when we use this word students in this week's theme of students of life, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're studying books.
No, yeah.
Is what I'm hearing. Okay.
Yeah, I think to be students means that we cultivate this seamless relationship to all life around us. We're listening, we're receiving this multifaceted gifts of the as it arises, without expectation.
Well, let's open it up to other folks who have their own thoughts and experiences and questions. And we have some Buddhist practitioners here with us, and some who are others. So everyone can join in. It's a very universal topic.
Carolyn's raising her hand.
You just need to let them have a moment. Carolyn?
Here. You mentioned Zen, and to me, that's one of the first and oldest within this modern cycle of special spiritual disciplines. Is that so, or are all the spiritual disciplines that we hear about with different names, are they all the same, or are there distinctions depending upon the teacher or the society or the religion the term might come from? Because that's what gets confusing. Are we having to learn about several different spiritual paths, or are they all pretty much the same? That's what I'd kind of like to know in order to get started on things. And in particular, what's distinctive about Zen compared to some of the other disciplines you've mentioned?
I think, I come from the universalist background. So, of course, I see, one great view and many branches and one trunk and one, common roots. That being said, as they appear, they can appear very differently. Yet, in essence, really be right in line with the core of things, I think. I think a lot of that depends on various cultural and other developments over time. So this one view, the one large view, is very important. Mm. The particular value, I think, of Zen is that it's pared things down to kind of minimalist outline of things, which can be very helpful to give some focus and solidity to one's practice without getting too complicated with things in a sense, but sticking really clearly to these very basic and deep foundation principles. More comments? Cliff was going to say something.
Diana and then Cliff.
Yeah, Diana, you go.
I was just going to say, for me, when you asked about the difference, for me, Zen meditation and practicing daily and having that be a way to move underneath our thoughts. Many times with many traditions, it's a lot of here. And for me, Zen is coming from, well, the core, or who we are. And it helps me learn to go beneath my thoughts and touch what is and listen. For me, the words I will use will be divine wisdom and divine love, and just to rest in that. And it's when that resting that I can feel the commonality or the oneness with everything. When I'm in that space, I am a soul in a body, and yet my body is also my soul. And so it's like, for me, Zen is different than some of the other traditions I have studied, and I have found that for me, it really helps me live in the present moment, because I'm not caught in all my thing. Suzuki Roshi used to say, you open the front door and you open the back door, and you let your thoughts go through, but you don't invite them for tea. And if you invite them for tea, then you let them out the back door and you come back. And so I think it is that silence. It's that being willing to rest in the unknown that helps me live that in my daily life. So that can be in everything that I do. If I'm present, if I can be aware, even with people, of just being totally present with what I'm with them and not think about all the other things. There is a magic that I think happens beneath the words that are really important. And even with my therapy practice, it's like I meet people in that place of oneness, and it really helps to work through a lot of the different issues that they have. So for me, the silence and stillness is what makes, and there's other ways of doing I think they're all ways to go to the divine or to the oneness. But for me, the silence has been really important for me to touch base with my inner spirit.
Well, yeah, that's great. I totally concur. I like your Suzuki Roshi little quote of opening. Be sure to open both doors and let the go through.
Cliff, did you want to take us in a new direction?
Well, maybe I'll add on to what Diana said, but yeah, maybe my mind's going in too many directions, I think, on this, but that's probably a problem. But I do remember reading Suzuki's book about the Zen of archery way back when I was a freshman in college, and just loving that book, and how these Zen archers could shoot arrows in the dark and hit the center of the target, and then there was, of course, that other book back then about the Zen of motorcycle maintenance that I never read the full book, but basically one thing I'm getting is the idea that Zen can be in any activity. Zen can be part of it. There's that wonderful statement or that thing that you had in the almanac one time about Thich Nhat Hanh, about doing the dishes without having your mind leaping ahead to trying to get the dishes done so you can move on to something that you want to do, but to be able to actually just do the dishes when you're doing the dishes. But this idea of it being present in whatever one is doing. And I've been trying to learn at my later age how to play golf. And I think there's a Zen to golf too, in that the more you try, the more you don't do well. In fact, the teacher I'm having right now is just saying, just hit the ball. And, I get all these thoughts because there's a zillion swing thoughts that you can have, but they actually hinder actually doing the right thing. And so I'm wondering if there's a way about Zen that's kind of counter intellectual or counterintuitive, in that we try with our mind, when actually, in like Diana's saying, we need to open the back door and let these thoughts run through. Someone just shared with me a book called I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj. And what I'm reading, as I'm reading these dialogues in this book, he keeps pointing out that there is basically the body, and then there's consciousness, but then there's this element, this thing that's beyond consciousness called the witness. And it's kind of like what Patanjali talks about, the soul being the perceiver. And but how do we get there? It seems like in some ways we have to tame the mind, but we have to do it in a crafty manner without the mind knowing that we're taming it. And Ramana Maharshi says that the best way to tame the mind is to have the mind keep asking the question, "Who am I?" And then there's that other idea in Buddhism that the word nirvana actually means to blow out, which I think would be interpreted as to blow out the ego, or to blow out the cacophony in the mind. But I just wondered what your thoughts are on how Zen helps us move toward this witness element that seems to be ever present in all beings.
Of course, this is the great ultimate questions, yeah, and the Sargata Maharaj, I Am That. It's a great book, great view. Mm. And Ramana Maharshi, who am I? Who am I? As a practice, the practice. It's also used as an introductory breakthrough koan in Zen practice. Who am I? Who am I? So who am I? Who is this ultimate I when washing dishes? Who is this I when driving the car? Who is this I when engaging in my business? Who is this I? And our relative mind is self-identifying these as having different content. And then we attach to that content as creating a certain kind of identity. But who is this I ultimately experiencing this experience, in this seemingly self and object separate experience. And then there are these brief moments where it might be the Hawaiian sunset, or here it could be something dramatic, or it could be a little thing like a dewdrop on a spider's web, and catches us. And in the first moment, there was something other happening. So then we get this little mini pinpricks of that other, we all have them, and problem is we tend to override them or underride them or dismiss them or not really cherish their value, maybe in our modern times. But they happen experientially. It's not, something that we only can conceptualize, and that's important to have just the view or the idea, but engaging in our practice and becoming a little more in that kind of liminal world where we become a little closer, and we've slowed things down enough so something may catch our attention in these magical ways, is very important, I think. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of the well, two stories, just because they contrast, both Zen stories about Zen and archery, as you mentioned that. Both one told to me by a friend of mine, the other one I've read about by a recent Zen teacher. And the first story is like we think of, oh, this is the amazing Zen master story, or Kyudo is Japanese archery. So in that one, a friend of mine in the 70s was practicing Kyudo in Japan with a great Kyudo Zen archery master. And that teacher then invited his teacher to come. So that teacher was then in his 80s, iconic figure, but old, thin, And they start setting up the Kyudo archery range. And this friend of mine is there. He's like, what are they doing? And the targets are very small. It's a full range. It's not the ceremonial practice, but the full distant practice. The big longbows, and then the senior student is shooting the arrow, and the old man's standing next to the target, the old master, and he had put a bamboo guard on his arm. Okay, no one knows what's going to happen. Friend of mine's watching, and then the student shoots. He's a little nervous because there's someone standing right next to the target. It's not easy to hit the target. He's a little nervous, but he shoots the arrow spot on to the center of the target, and 6 inches from the target, the old man grabs the arrow out of the air. And again, repeated, I mean, my friend watching, he was pretty good by that point. He thought this was totally impossible. He thought somehow they had rigged it somehow, but he couldn't figure out how they could. Because, if you try to catch the arrow, you will either grab after the arrows hit the target, or too soon, and the arrow will pin your arm against the target. So how is this possible? Well, of course, for the great master standing there, he wasn't trying. He was one with the person shooting, one with the arrow, and one with the target. So for him, he was just picking up the arrow. So this kind of unity has that kind of potential in it. But on the other side, this is also true, which is one of my favorite, more recent Zen stories. A Zen teacher named Kobun Chino, who was Steve Jobs' Zen teacher, and Steve Jobs' wife's Zen teacher. Kobun Chino had reputedly been a pretty good, a good Zen archer. And so they'd set up a thing at Esalen Institute for him to shoot one day. It all set up. He had all his nice gear on, nice arrows, the target facing the ocean. He picks up the bow, he takes careful aim. Right as he's about to shoot, he lifts the bow up and he shoots the arrow up, goes way over and lands in the ocean. And he turns around, smiles at all his students who are in total shock, and he goes, bullseye. So that's also a pure Zen, hit the pure target, total universal target. He just shot into the sky. So I really love that story.
Yeah, what is it about that that makes it so zen? That it defies logic and reason, I guess. Something like that. It just leaves it to purely to our intuition to grasp the significance of something like that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
There's a lot more to unpack with what you were commenting on, Cliff. I think I want to kind of invite others to add to that.
You know, Cliff, you've had, for just a non-professional golfer to have golf 6 hole-in-ones means that you've had some moments. Can you describe what that was like? Do you have a sense of the witness state while doing any of those?
Well, I think a lot of sports people experience, like Ken has been saying, that all human beings that have these little flashes or experiences, but then we write them off. But you hear a lot of sports people say that, that they're in the moment. I think there was some NBA player just recently that scored some astronomical number of 3-pointers in one game. And I think he only missed one in a game. So he was somehow in this zone or this other space that Ken described so well in the ancient or the older Zen master being able to pluck the arrow out of the sky. But yeah, I don't know. You would think, yeah, hole-in-ones are luck, and I think 3 of my 6 were. 3 of them, though, I felt before I hit the ball that it was going to go in the hole, and that's, we're talking, 150 yards or something, and I just felt it, and I felt that before in tennis when I'm about to serve the ball that I'm gonna ace it, or I'm gonna shoot a 3 in basketball and it's gonna go before you let go of it. But I'm going back to Nisarga Datta. He keeps coming back to this duality that we have, with pleasure and pain, but fear and desire are always monopolizing the mind. And like in golf, when I stand on the tee, normally it's either fear of hitting it in the sand trap or hitting it in the water, or my coach berating me, or something like that, or desire to make a good shot. And it's hard to get away from those two opponents, fear and desire. And but Nisargadatta often refers to those as somehow we have to get released from the shackles of fear and desire before we're ever going to get to this witness state. So
Fear and desire. Uh, yeah, in Zen has some unique approaches to this problem, and also in especially Dzogchen tradition in Tibetan Buddhism, also, and other traditions as well, and maybe Sufism sometimes. Is that the self-grasping ego would be seen as the more fundamental source of the problem of seeming fear or desire. Because fear, for example, it's always something being resisted, some sense of impermanence, misunderstood. Uh, you know, Buddhism would say impermanence is all pervasive, but misperceived. So it's our craving and aversion that and attachments that creates the problem with impermanence. So to neither engage nor push away. How do we solve this problem of something, fear, anger, jealousy? Uh, can be a problem. There are many stories, of course, like find to illustrate these things, there's one in the Tibetan tradition, the meditation retreat times of the Tibetan saint Milarepa. He's in the cave. He's been there for years and years. It's 12 years altogether ultimately, and he demons come to bother him. They're doing all kinds of mischief and things. So he doesn't know what to do. So he then realizes, well, he can offer them some tea and appease them. So he makes his tea offering. He makes tea, and the demon comes. He offers tea, and the demon bursts into light. So the demons are the fear, the anger, the jealousy, whatever emotion. And another one comes, and then Miller is very happy now. He's got it down. All he has to do is make this offering of tea, and the demon bursts into light. There's this great experience. And we can find analogies for this in our own personal life. I think we have a little problem, we kind of work on it, and there's a little bit of aha, and it's like, we got it. And then he's kind of smug and satisfied, and then little time goes by, things are fine. He thinks everything's fine, no more demons, And then, of course, the demon appears that is bigger than he is. Huge, scary, big mouth demon, right? So he's like, oh, now what do I do? And so he comes very close, and we have to get close to our inner demons, and the demon's big mouth is there. And what does Milarepa do? Is he puts his head in the demon's mouth. And in that act, the demon spontaneously combusts into light and disappears. So I think the essence of the meaning there is that he has to give up himself, this limited sense of self, completely give it in that moment. And even this deep core, quote, demon of our core sense of separateness, our sense of separate identity, the great heresy of separateness, in some theosophic tradition, and giving completely, and then it was never there. Actually, it was just this fabrication. It's starting with small things, there's a small fear or a small thing. Again, if we push it away, what happens with them? Like we're meditating, something comes up, like, I don't want to deal with that, push it away, Then, of course, it gets bigger. But then also if we jump into it, and then it joins the party, like you mentioned with Suzuki Roshi quote, and then the whole train thing gets going. Like we start chatting with it to try and make it correct. That's a mess. That doesn't work either. But there's this place of central equanimity where we allow something to arise, and it's just there. Good, bad, and different. It's just there. And if we allow that space, it self-liberates. They talk about in Dzogchen, for example. But in our meditative state, these things have a big problem. And it's not happening instantaneously. We are humans, have to work on a little bit, but slowly we get, where it's like not too far away, not too close, like right there. And it's like, yeah, it has as much to do with our sense of self-grasping as with the content of the fear or the anger. It's much more involved in our inner sense of self-grasping, separate self.
I had a situation recently where I experienced something that the Tibetan Buddhist nun Pema Chodron mentions, which is the big squeeze. And for her, as she describes it, or as I understand it, it's that time when things are going along and you're doing your best to live your life the way you really should be living it, and then something happens that puts on the big squeeze. And now, how are you going to live the way you want to live? What's going to happen now when you're in the big squeeze? And one of the things that she recommends is do something different. No matter what it is, just do something different than you normally would. And so I was going along on this whole chain of thought that I had been going along on for several years, probably at least. And I felt like I was in this big squeeze. And then I was like, well, let's just let that go for the moment. Can I think something different? Can I just really think in a whole different way and make room for an entirely different possibility? And something different did come through. And it was so liberating. It was such a relief to just do something different. And all of a sudden, that big squeeze just fell away, and I wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's always so remarkable how when that does happen in life, and then afterwards one looks back and goes, it's almost as if the squeeze didn't happen, but then we have to think, and well, it really did, and it was really quite difficult and challenging, and but then all that angst about it had nothing to do with changing it. It really had the spaciousness, some little thing. What is that X factor? It's so mysterious and yet and amazing, you know. I mean, it's really that's what Nisargadatta Maharaj is talking about with I am that and these other things. We have that little flavors like, huh, and everything is suddenly like expanded and like, why not do something totally different?
Thank you. I wonder if we might hear with uh, Prakar or
Um, yes, I have a question actually.
Prakar, he's from our group.
Uh, so you said when thoughts arise, like you don't engage with it, like you don't let them sit for tea, and but at the same time you don't push it away. So the thought is there, or whatever it is, feelings or emotions.
Mm.
If you are separating it yourself away from it, then you have created the duality. But if you are with it, then you are maybe engaging with it. Like, what does the dynamic look like?
The last part again.
So what does a dynamic look like when something arises? If you are with it, then are you engaging with it, or how does the Buddha nature come with it, like when you are just observing it, but then you create this separation with it?
Prakar always asks such good questions. We've done this a few times, so I say they're good because you're thinking of questions that I haven't quite thought of. So then it really pushes my I really have to reflect. Okay, it's like, and these are good questions, not. You know. I think I'm heading back into the Zen mode that we can say these things. I'm just speaking from experience. We can say, oh, I am looking at my thoughts. This is common way of talking. I am thinking XYZ. Okay. So in Zen, we're shifting. We're making a very curious shift. And I think this is true in all meditative traditions in a way, but I'm going to speak Zen language a little bit. In that sense, what we're being invited to do is because the meditation anchoring and focus is on our breath, body, and awareness, you know? So we're looking at the seamless relationship of our breathing and our body, and then this thing we call awareness, keeping it very simple. Just that's it. So thought, feeling, and emotion, or memory, or something anticipating the future. It's not so much to watch it in some cognitive way, in the usual cognitive way, but to breathe it. So if I'm breathing, I'm literally, some really difficult emotion comes up. It might have a place in my body, mind, not separate. So we want to put our attention or our awareness to where we are breathing in that. We are literally inhaling and then exhaling that uh, quality, whatever it is, good, bad, and different. And the most unusual thing that happens is that as we are applying this kind of breathing awareness, and this isn't like hatha yoga exactly, it's something different. It's a breathing awareness. It can be in yoga too, but so uh, we apply that breathing awareness, and then what happens? It starts to change. And if it's a tightness or space in the body, it literally can vanish. So I hope I'm answering the question. We can go further, but in that sense, I'm not trying to watch it with my sense of analytic mind. Something is arising, and we're literally breathing into it, into establishing a more seamless relationship, which then automatically flows with a sense of separating to see it and merging with it. It's automatic. And then that seeing becomes something very neutral. It's just like, oh, there's an insight. We're just seeing its nature. Like it could be something difficult, maybe. And then all of a sudden, we're just seeing it like not through some kind of hard objectivity of analysis, but just like very calmly, like, oh, that's what it's about. And then it's just like melting, you know, and then the next thing comes. I mean, I don't, uh, again, I wish I was in Honolulu. I'd come for some Tai Chi or some movement. But maybe Renee, I mean, if comment on how this works in movement, is maybe I can invite that. I think it would be nice, you know, in movement, our therapeutic movement or dance and movement. Uh, like even for myself, when I have practiced Tai Chi in the past a bit, you know, I need to do more in my older years now. But in that movement, then one becomes one with the movement, and whatever is happening in one emotionally and physically, then merges into that movement in a present way, and it dissipates. I mean, even in our regular sports activities, if you, I always recommend that people like meditate for 1-2 minutes, then go jogging, then go walking, then play golf, uh, go swimming. You know, then at the end, also 1-2 minutes changes everything. Yet nothing changed.
When I do my Nia practice, and I'm usually teaching it these days, I always hold an intention, and I don't recall the intention that I was holding on during that particular class. It would have been relevant to this story. However, I don't recall it. I'm sorry. It could have been something like moving from my center point. And no matter what I'm doing in this class, today I'm going to move from my center point. That might be an overall intention that I thread through the entire class. Whatever my intention was, by my just keeping that steadily in my mind as I'm moving, it doesn't leave enough room for these other invading thoughts to interrupt my practice. And so I'm able to be flowing with it. And at the same time, it does allow an openness for inspiration. And so in this one particular class, an octopus came to visit. And so all of a sudden, I was inviting all of us to move with our octopus arms and whatever it was that we were doing, and to experience, at the same time, the strength, but then also the extreme mobility of these octopus arms, and how this octopus body of ours could at once be very large and outstretched, and in the next instant be just kind of melting, shrinking into the tiniest little form that could creep through like a crack at the top of its aquarium confinement. So it was a very imaginative experience that I found myself in and took my students on. And I don't know whether that was I don't know whether it at all answers Prakar's question. But you asked me what it is like to have something of a Zen moment during a movement practice. So to me, that was one of those. There was, I don't know where Renee was during all of that. All I know is an octopus came to visit us, and we danced that.
I think that's perfect in the sense of the octopus. We'd say this is the octopus as the absolute experience of octopus. Or if it was a Zen koan, it would be, how do I realize my Buddha nature when dancing with the octopus? Versus, one could be like, oh my God, there's this weird creature that's loose. Like, what are we going to do with it? And then all this reactive mind could come. That's the other side, but it's the same. There's no difference. It's just the octopus. So one is spacious mind, a seamless relationship. The other is isolated mind. Something is separate. And then
oh my gosh, I'm going crazy.
I'm hallucinating an octopus. Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
And Bob has a lot of Zen experience. How do you even want to dip your toe into this?
Well, there's so many ideas and everything, and I like your reference to openness and what that means. I guess I'll just give a short story, and I'll try to give some answer to Carolyn's point of, is Zen the same as all the others? The story is Dogen Zenji raises the question, if Buddha nature is ours, this very body is the Buddha, this very land is the pure land. Buddha nature pervades the whole year. If it's right here, then why do I need to practice?
Mm.
And the question, I think, is really, as he begins to say, well, realization and practice are not two things. And that's part of the openness to the idea. And I think going back to Carolyn's point of Zen, Zen is a Japanese word for meditation. The Chinese word is Chan, and that's where Zen or Chan, they're the same thing. One is the Chinese word, one is the Japanese word. That's Zen. That's Buddhism. And it's interesting, I think, that Buddhism, of course, originated in India, uh, and it had early Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism. 500 years later, Nagarjuna talks about the beginnings of Mahayana Buddhism. All of these sutras, early to late, come over to China. They begin to translate them. And my feeling is what happened was one thing resonated with the Chinese mind, and that was Mahayana Buddhism. And it resonated because of the indigenous views of Taoism and Confucianism. And I think when you put those three together, you begin to get the uniqueness of Zen, of Chan Buddhism. The Mahayana, there's a lot of references, but in the Prajnaparamita Shastra, Nagarjuna says, it just means not clinging. If you ask a question with the mind of clinging, the Buddha will either stay silent or say no. Um, that mind of clinging will immediately push you wrong. And so, as was said during comments, the mind of not clinging means that you are open, that you're willing to have something happen. Um, and I think what's interesting about all of these concepts coming to China is that in Taoism, we think of the Tao as the way. We translate them using very Western Christian words. But in Taoism, the point is that the Tao is not an end, a realization of some place you're trying to get to. In Buddhism, we'd say nirvana. But the Tao is Taoing, is taking step by step with the mind of not clinging. And I think once you have those things happening, and similar with Confucianism, you're very much focusing on the process and not so much of an ideal. Tien is not heaven. Tien is our aspiration, aspiring towards something. And the roles and relations we begin to play out through that. And so I think that true openness really begins to get at what we're saying. I'll just end with a story. The emperor of China brought the most famous Zen person he could think of, best reputation. He brought him there, and he said, and the emperor was quite proud of himself. He said, "I've been donating all this money, creating all these temples. Where's my merit? How much merit have I got?" And the monk says, "No merit, none whatsoever." And so the emperor's kind of confused, and then he says, "Well, who's standing before me? Who are you that you can say this to me, the emperor? Who are you?" And the monk says, "I don't know." And then he says, "Okay, I don't understand." He goes away. And then someone says, "Do you know who that was? That was Bodhidharma. That was the beginning of the most important Zen master of China." And he says, "Well, bring him back." And he says, "Too late. He's gone. You'll never talk to him again." And that not knowing mind, later a Zen person said, not knowing, how intimate. Um, and so it's, going for non-clinging, intimacy, openness, step by step is the Tao. I think that may be what Zen is about. And thinking, there's a wonderful story from Hakuin who says, "Oh yeah, Satori. I've had 27 Satoris, little ones, and 13 big ones." Um, Satori is not the end point. Satoris happen, and Yeah, realization is there, but as a process. This founder of my tradition, Aiken Roshi, said, even Buddha is only halfway there.
That's
Unless
neat.
you're dead, you're done. But if you are a Buddhist practicing, you are practicing that realization. Anyway, I
Oh,
think
thank you,
that
Bob.
is a uniqueness to Zen in the Chinese tradition, as it kind of takes those ideas and as you said, there's absolute mind, there's relative mind, but if you cling to either one, you're in great trouble in terms of Zen.
Thank you. I'm seeing our time slip through the hourglass.
Just like that. Yeah, it's great. Only don't know. Yeah.
Well, what I think I'd like to do is tell you about next week, ask somebody about next week on the spot, and then I'll ask Ken if he'd like to say something in summary, and ask if someone else might like to give a vote of thanks to Ken after that. So, Carolyn, you are the person I was thinking of putting on the spot. Our theme for next week is women and men of peace. And I was unable to reach you yesterday when I wanted to and ask you whether you might be able to speak to us a little bit about the Zen laureate, not Zen, the Peace Laureate tradition with the Nobel Peace Award. And so you can get back to me, but that is the topic for next week, is women and men of peace. And then so that will be our final one of our gems from the wisdom traditions for 2025. The next week we will have off, and then next week, as I mentioned at the beginning, we'll be heading into our 2026 almanac and its themes, with the overall theme for the year of evolving with the cosmos. So, Ken, is there something that you'd like to say in conclusion?
I think very minimal, I like what Bob said, a number of things these stories bring to mind, but essentially this only don't know mind, this openness and spaciousness, it's illustrated in the Zen stories, in this moment to moment. It's like you're sharing about the octopus earlier, Renee. It's very beautiful. And then everyone has examples, of this open dimension of being, and this moment to moment breathing that into our life, inhaling and exhaling, that our practice is the expression of this. We're not, it isn't trying to run and jump to get there. It's really already there and it's manifesting. Yeah, thank you so much. This was fun. Yeah.
And thank you. Cliff, did you want to give our vote of thanks?
Oh gosh, I'd love to. I think this is the first time, Ken, that I've got to see you virtually. I don't recall that we've met, but it's been a wonderful opportunity. I've heard quite a bit about you, and this whole hour has been such a pleasure. I think I can say just my nervous system feels a lot less jangled at the end of this hour than it did at the beginning of this hour. And I didn't realize I was kind of like all worked up mentally or whatever, but you exude a very calm, deep, I don't know, intuitive listening presence. So just as much as your words, it's just your presence virtually, I think, was wonderful. I mean, as a practitioner, as someone in the process, as Bob would say, of Zen practitioner, or Zen process person. So I think you exemplified Zen as much as you spoke about it. And it's been a very big pleasure, I think, for all of us here to have you virtually with us, all over wherever we are.
Yeah, wonderful meeting everyone and sharing this afternoon. And
Yeah,
hope to see you sometime in Honolulu or here in California, one way or the other.
sounds wonderful. And we're so glad, Prakar, that you were able to join us today. Lovely to have you as well.
Thank you
Carolyn,
very much for your insights.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Blessings, everybody. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.
aloha.
Aloha.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much,
everyone.
Jen.
Goodbye.